You know, it's your boy Antoine the Source. Unspoken Conversation, episode 93. Well, they got me in here one deep this time, Spider. Like, man, you know, there's a lot going on, so everybody had a little bit to do. You know, I think my boy Knowledge in Vegas right now. My boy D-Boy being, you know, boyfriend of the year. Hey, you gotta put in those those granular efforts. My boy Flim, of course, you know, he behind the scenes working magic, man. We had a great building session this week, by the way. Yeah, they abandoned me, but you know, for the week. So I'm gonna be on my like Black Colin Coward, you know, type shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, feel like you got a little nighttime show, you know. But it was a lot that I had, you know, on my mind to come in. We had another show planned, but I think sometimes things happen in perfect timing because I felt like the show that we had planned was not going to be on topic of the elephant in the room. And honestly, when I say the elephant in the room, I mean literally because my emotions have been all over the place this week. You know, I know a lot of you out there that are listening right now kind of, you know, share my sentiments. But I think the thing that I've come to terms with after we get the results of what we all know is Joe Biden will be the president. Thankfully, you know, it won't be another term of Donald Trump unless something crazy happens. But, you know, it kind of feels as though this is a win that doesn't leave me fulfilled because I'm not approaching this term empty or without, you know, real care in mind because I've seen the dark side in a way of where this shit can go if the wrong person is in power. And I've seen a lot of the cloaks and masks come off of a lot of people. The divisiveness has scared me, you know, and that's what, like, Wednesday morning after I woke up, after the election was going on, after the initial results came out, I was low, man, because I'm gonna tell you how I felt, Spider. You know, no offense, because you know you my white brother, but I felt the way I feel every time I watch A Time to Kill a Rosewood. You know, one of those films where like it shows you what it was like. And it shows you the unbridled fangs of racism. And then you look up and you realize that it's a time period that you're watching, but you're still upset and mad with what happened with people that look like you, that share your skin, that share your features, by people that now you interact with and work with alongside with and have relationships with, and you have a lot of love for sometimes, but those people that you see, it had you side-eyeing all of them for a brief moment. And I woke up having to interact with a lot. I'm the only black person on my team. Outside of, it's one other person, but they don't really work on my project. So I'm always the only black person in the room or the representation on the phone as we work from home. And I always feel as though I have to represent something bigger than myself. And that's a stressful thing, man. You're always being the representation of what they think. And so your move and your actions can actually dictate how somebody views your whole race sometimes. And we do it on the other end. You got to think about it. You know, my interactions with you, Spider, have always been great because you are one of the most solid, dope individuals as far as like white people I know, because I feel like you align with a lot of the things that we are looking at outside of race. And so we are able to share on a lot of, you know, different things that we you know, are interested in. We have a lot of the same things in common. But unfortunately, I know how my experience has been these last 4 years, but also just this year, especially with all that has been going on. I kind of wanted to ask you, Spider, you know, with you being, you know, a white guy, I never really have the correspondence of how it's been for you, especially with this election season going on, the relationships and navigating the dynamics of people that sometimes don't rock with people that look like myself or minorities or try to maintain supremacy. Has that been something you've had to navigate?
For sure, man. And especially in here, in the studio itself. Because it's a little bit different. Like in my personal life, I don't deal with a lot of people, period, anymore, especially since COVID. It's like me, my pops, my immediate family is really the only people that I fuck with right now. But in here, it's like I don't really have a choice of who I fuck with.
Yeah.
And I'm also sitting here all day listening to people's opinions,
Mm-hmm.
So that, for me, that's been the hardest part, is just at my job having to listen to other people talk about it, when, like right now, I have you in here. We're going to go through this, right? We've gone through the same kind of stuff for the most part. We talk about the same kind of things on your show. The show that comes in right after you is a group of older white women that have a complete opposite view. So I go directly from talking with my friends about this kind of stuff to hearing the exact same or the exact opposite thing an hour later. You know what I mean?
And they're comfortable speaking about it amongst you because they feel as though he might share our same sentiments.
And that's what I hate about it. And that's what, just in general, that people want to approach me. White people want to approach me because I'm white and talk to me about this shit like I'm going to immediately agree with them. And I'm like, yo, man, like that's not how this shit works.
Man, and that's why I always felt like that was complicated. And I never realized how complicated race relations was until recently, because no one race and no one people is a monolith, and as you get into the components, I actually spoke to a Mexican yesterday. I say a Mexican because he's actually born in Mexico, and he's a Republican. You know what I mean? And you wonder, like, okay, and he's actually trying to sell me on why he can't vote Democrat. And I'm just sitting there appalled almost. I'm like, bro, you are everything that he hates, but it's certain niche or it's certain ideals that sometimes people align with that you won't even realize. Like I look at something as far as the Cuban Americans in Miami and in South Florida. That was something I didn't even realize because I never really had to address it. Because a lot of times, especially in the Deep South, we look at things in a black and white climate.
Right.
We don't look at the technicalities or the context or the actual intermediate races, because the spectrum has always been black and white. But we never know how the real how real these complicated relationships are in interracial relationships, because I look at the Cuban Americans, a lot of them identify as white. I never realized that. A lot of them, and this was what sold them on rooting for Trump and being against everything the Democratic Party stood for. The big word of socialism. And it makes sense in a way, but I never realized how high level people approach politics. They never look below the surface. Well, most people don't. Because all you need to do is sell them on one term that will engage them. Socialism. Racism. Social justice.
Yeah, isms and ists.
Isms. And the isms are what gravitates people to a candidate or to a line of thought. But then you realize they are selling you on what you need to hear to get your vote. A lot of them are like, I came from a socialist country. I came from a dictatorship. I refuse to fall to big government. Big government will always be a thing. And I honestly believed that this shit was behind us years ago, and I'm glad that this actually has happened because it got me off my goddamn heels. And it got a lot of us off our heels, but also opened our eyes to issues that we didn't know were there. And I feel as though now a lot of people eyes are a lot more open and aware as far as what it really takes to move the needle politically. And even if you want an expert, I've never seen this many people speak on the Electoral College and pay attention to how the voter suppression was a real issue. That's why I want to preface a lot of what I speak on the next phase of this show by giving and saluting and giving all the flowers and all the thanks to Stacey Abrams. That's the true definition of someone taking their lick and basically getting true redemption in a way on a system that failed them. Because you killed them from the inside out. And what I mean by that is it was a silent fight almost, because a lot of us outside of Atlanta and in Georgia didn't realize the work she was putting in until the results came. That's the sweetest approach to phasing a plan, is just the people seeing the results and the results hitting and actually being instrumental. And her being able to rally over 800,000 voters that a lot of time, because Atlanta and Georgia is the face, and Georgia as a whole is the face of voter suppression in America. And to be able to combat that after the system had failed you and actually come in clutch, I honestly believe that Stacey Abrams deserves a cabinet position at the least, because she did the work on the ground, and she's also qualified enough to be in the cabinet. Honestly,
the kind of person that you actually want there,
right? Forward thinking in the approach of being able to rally, and she's being able to show that she can move people. That's a social currency that is so rare, being able to move people, because we all have our agendas, we all have our things that we're worried about within our world. And a lot of times people don't even give a fuck about pouring into a movement or pouring into a priority of someone else's. And to see Georgia rally, to see Pennsylvania rally, this is what shows you, though, the power of the vote and the power of a movement. So, that I just had to make sure I salute her, but also I realized the impression and the impact that the black women have had on this movement as a whole. Tamika Mallory, who has been instrumental in the fight for social justice and injustice, and has been on the front lines for a lot longer than we've realized, than the cameras have shown. And she said that, the rallying cry is, a lot, the black women are responsible for the Democratic, impression in the Democratic amount of vote and turnout. And in a way, I kind of had to agree with her, because if you think of a lot of the main characters that have actually made real movement and moved the needle, they have been black women. I don't believe the Democratic Party would have made as much of an impact if Kamala Harris wasn't involved on this ticket. Because at the end of the day, it moves the needle because it makes people talk, but also you realize that they've had to do so much in order to get to where they've been, that their experience has overtaken a lot of their peers. And they've been able to work in a room that is not only against their black skin, but them as a gender. So that's like a double-edged sword, and being able to navigate that shows true greatness, and that's why I'm really interested to see where this future is held. And if Biden is really smart, he would tap in with that community, because that community has shown that they can move people. And I'm really looking forward to the support that comes from this. but I'm not in this fantasy land of thinking that this a kumbaya moment and everything will be all right.
It's just a step in the right direction.
Step in the right direction. The reason I say that is what I've noticed with how the map, because I love looking during election season where you can kind of get the scope of the point of view of communities, of geographic locations, because it gives you a bird's eye view of how the climate is in that area. Well, this election more than others, because elections before this, it was bipartisan. Everybody had their beliefs and their party beliefs, and it really wasn't like, how dare you? But this one, you know what I mean? It kind of like it kind of opened my eyes to, if you live in an urban area anywhere in America, you have racism is there, but it's not in your face on a day where it's like the tension in the room. You know what I mean? It's not suffocating at times. I can navigate here in Dallas and always feel as though I'm in a comfortable and welcome setting. If I tried, it's easy to find it. You know what I mean? Because you can surround yourself with people that have your like views. You might encounter people that might give you a view or something, but a lot of times people aren't as brash and open with it because you have to be able to coexist in a way. You know what I mean? It's so much other shit going on that a lot of times it's not the main issue. A lot of times people look at things as though money is green. In larger areas, you're able to coexist. It's cross racial relations. It's interracial relationships that are a norm. It's a lot. It's mixed environments, but you leave the gates of those urban areas, those inner cities, and you look at it on the map, it gets real red. And in this, when I was driving to Houston for about a 5-mile stretch of gates on ranches, I saw the sign that said Trump country. And I felt as though that supersedes the Make America Great Again as far as a belief, because now you're believing in the man and everything he stands for. And for his supporters, that is their viewpoint, is how can we maintain the system of supremacy as a whole, from a financial perspective, from an educational perspective, from a geographical perspective, from a legal perspective, from a social perspective as a whole. How can we maintain supremacy? And I feel as though this is the first time in American history where they feel as though that is truly threatened. But I feel as though they believe the threat is larger and closer than they realize. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to fight battles one at a time, a lot of times, as minorities, as black people, as those that are trying to make sure that we open up our own 40 acres and a mule. We're trying to catch up in the rat race, if that makes sense. From a 400-year head start of trying to catch you, we feel as though we're making real inroads, but then something like 2016 happens because 2008 was the win that they never thought we'd get. And I always feel as though 2008 started this whole trickle of events with Barack Obama's election, because it perked the ears of people who really were just living amongst themselves, feeling as though my place as the supreme race and culture and person is here. It was thoughtless as far as how you approach the day. You never felt the threat.
Yeah,
you always felt, what'd you say?
Part of everyday life.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it was something that even crossed someone's mind. It was just, this is how things are. This is how I want things to be.
Right. it's almost as though it took them to have a face of the threat. You know, if you look at most movements, there's been a face that you can kind of look at as though that is the person that is the Black Messiah. And J. Edgar Hoover has always said that to kill the snake of a move, to kill the movement, you have to take off the head. And a lot of times that has been violence. But with Obama, what they did is they took away his power within office. A lot of the things that he wanted to do, he couldn't do. You handcuffed him. Mitch McConnell was the main advocate of that, and he remains. That's why I say I feel a little empty with this win, because the faces don't change behind the scenes. And if the faces don't change behind the scenes, how does the system change? And I ask myself that, and that's the approach that we've always done, unfortunately, is we are focused so much on that face, white and Black people. We'll focus on that face, and we'll let all of the real threats move behind it. I look at it as though, you remember A House of Mirrors, where it kind of has the clown's face on the front of it, and you walk through the clown's mouth? I look at the presidential election as that clown's face. Trump is that clown's face in a way, and it's real here, because the House of Mirrors is behind him. It's characters we don't even know exist, or we don't know their name on a household basis. Right. But those are the real movers and shakers, the Mitch McConnells that pretty much has come on a lot of people's radar that they didn't realize. The Steve Bannons before shit went left with him. A lot of those movers and shakers we didn't realize were working. So as you enter into the mouth of the clown, you now have these twists and turns that will leave you confused, and it's hard to align on one issue or get to the end, to the exit, or to the finish line, because it's always something gravitating that's pulling you in and making you emotional, because a lot of times human nature is to move on emotions, right? So, okay, George Floyd, boom. Ahmaud Arbery, boom. Breonna Taylor, boom. Donald Trump, daily slap in the face, boom. Donald Trump's supporters, boom. Our life, boom. It's all this shit around us that makes us emotional, that we gravitate to. But what happens is, those are just things to kind of like put to distract you and take away your real energy while the real shit is happening. I feel like I've never talked this much in my life. Like, cause I'm normally, able to bounce off my boys, but I don't know if anybody has watched the movie Snowden. It's on Netflix, and it talks about CIA, a guy who worked for the CIA. It's a true story. And he basically resigns from the CIA once he realized that the idea of surveillance on, personal surveillance, and how invasive the government really was and the plans, when he got a look behind, he basically tried to expose the U.S.'s works and efforts in surveillance, in personal and citizen surveillance and international surveillance. That's like, I'm watching that and I'm realizing, like, this shit way deeper than we realize.
Oh, yeah.
From a whole. And the web is so goddamn deep that what happens is this shit that we doing now is just a phase. This, who we riding with, MAGA, it will quiet down over the next 4 years. The reason it will quiet down is just like the Tea Party. It's going to be another movement that arises, but it will have the same principles.
A different name, couple
Just
different faces.
That's what I'm saying. The faces change. The enemy changes. It's just like first it was the slave owner, then it was the slave catcher, then it was the police. Now it's the system. It just gets deeper as you evolve. So does the system. So does the fight. So does the threat. And in that movie, there was a scene where Snowden is speaking to his CIA instructor, and Snowden has basically has shown himself as the best student in the class of trainees. He's thinking he's going to go to the Middle East to fight the war on terrorism because he's thinking that's the biggest fight right now for America. Mind you, this film was released in 2016. So that means it was filmed about 2014. And the instructor said, he was like, I'm not sending you to the Middle East. And he was like, why wouldn't you? I'm your best student. And he was saying, and the instructor stated that in 20 years, the Middle East will be a rubble that no one pays attention to. The real threat is Russia, Asia, and India. And I was like, it's like he said the future of what we are looking at. And it shows you that it's another face. It's the war on terrorism that had us all up in arms. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just as we approach or invest ourselves in a movement or against an enemy, the enemy changes. And then it starts all over again. So I say a lot of what I said previously to remind us not to move emotionally, especially in these next few months as we approach this term, these next 4 years, especially because the midterms in 2 years, as far as us being able to remove these same faces, is the key. We need to have the same approach, the same momentum, the same rallying cry in that election as we would for the president, because that's the true house of mirrors. It's not the clown face that we walk through. It's the true house of mirrors. So, just be cognizant of what you are putting your energy into and your attention into, and make sure you're just well informed. So that's a thing that I had to make sure I got out of there.
Was there anything like positive that you got out of the election at all?
Yeah, and it kind of goes to what Stacey Abrams did. It's the rallying. It's always good to see people actually use their voice. The turnout, especially in the 18 to 29 demographic, I want to salute y'all. It was huge, and that's why I had to make sure I gave the flowers to Stacey Abrams, because she was, I feel like, a face of that in Georgia. But to see that we were able to get that turnout, but I don't want people to just feel as though this is a one-time thing. We're just trying to get Trump out of office and then you go back to no, this is where the momentum actually has to start, and the movement increases. It has to be like a ball that rolls downhill and it just gains, because it has to grow. Your interest has to grow. You can't look at this idea as like, oh shit, that shit ain't got shit to do with me. Because these movements, a lot of the time, and these things that pass will affect you in the long run, but also it will affect your bottom line and you not even realize it. Look at how COVID was handled. We don't realize as though we are ill prepared a lot of times for chaos until chaos hits our front door and we have to pivot and react. Why not stop reacting? Why not being proactive in our approach and making sure that we are aligned and making sure that we are creating the support to actually move mountains? So I just want to make sure that we focused on that. But yeah, that was my real positive, take on it, was the support. The people that actually were rallying, and a lot of times celebrities are the faces of this rally. But I saw a lot of people that I know, everyday people that were loud in their their support, and also their cry for people to get out and vote, get out and be substantial and be of use in their communities. And that's why I really it made me proud, and that's why I didn't feel dejected after I saw the results. I just was hurt. Dejection is one where you're fucked up. Like, I felt as though Stacey Abrams said that after she lost the presidential run, and also after she lost, the government run, that after the system had failed her, she took 10 days to just lick her wounds. Sit in her thoughts, curl up in that ball we do sometimes after we have a true rejection, Then she said it was time to start plotting. It's time to, figure out how I can be of the same impact. So I'm going to kill them from the inside out, and that's how we need to approach things. No matter how the ball may roll, we need to be able to respond. The response is the key, and the response is what really is the impact. It's just like if a football team gets down 14-0 real quick, or a team gets down by 15 real quick first half. Are you just going to pack it in, or are you going to fight back? Because a lot of times that team that's ahead, when they think that they've got it won and you respond, you have won. You have gotten them on their heels, and now you are really able to take the dub, So that's what I want us to focus on, man, is responding when things are low, but also being proactive in our approaches. So, enough about politics. And, I just had to make sure that I touched on that. Again, if I never saw the numbers 253, 213 again.
Oh, it just switched to 284 to 214.
So he just won?
Apparently. I mean, you know how it's going to be. There are going to be all kinds of recounts. There's going to be some lawsuits and whatnot.
Of course.
But they just called Pennsylvania for him.
Knowledge been talking about it. We ain't going to know who won till February.
Yeah.
So, we're recording this right now Saturday morning. So, one thing that I wanted to focus on is I was thinking, I got a homeboy, he hollered at me Monday. And I there's this thing where it's extremists in every agenda as far as how they approach relationships and their need for companionship. You ever met somebody like that where it's like they jump from relationship to a relationship?
Yeah, can't be on their own at all.
Can't be on their own.
Oh, yeah. Especially in Dallas. There's a lot of those people.
So, I in 10 days time, because this dude has broken up, and replaced, and is already trying to play house with somebody else, because she does the thankless things that he never got. Stuff like, oh, you need something at Target, I'm gonna get it. Just little small shit.
Yeah.
Because he's always done things on a grand level, but he's always been the one dishing out and putting out, and he's never had an issue doing it. And I feel like sometimes this is something that goes under the radar for a lot of women and people, and they don't realize is a lot of times it's the small shit with guys. We are very surface with the acts of endearment. Our love languages are a lot of times, acts of service, and it doesn't have to be a grand service. It's just, you see, I need some shit around the house. You been here? I'm gonna just pick this up for you. And she did that, and And just her approach to things and how grounded their dynamic was. But I almost had to kind of like tell him, like, bro, it's the honeymoon stage, this the kumbaya, stage. But he was like, bro, on some real shit, man, like I ain't never had a woman really move like that for me. I've always been the one putting out, and I feel as though a lot of times that's the expectation that it's supposed to be a one-sided thing. And it's not money, it's not financial a lot of times. It's the service, it's the acts, it's the filling in the gaps. And I mean, I think a lot of times for men and women that goes that goes unnoticed. But what I really wanted to focus on with that though is the importance of needing your time to breathe. Because the worst thing you can do is not address your brokenness. I've said many times on this show, I know I'm complicated at moments, but we all are. And I've noticed that how I handle people and how people handle me is based off of a lot of times past experiences. And I think it's something like letting something beat you twice. You know what I'm saying? Because with so much shit going on in the world, I feel the first time, more than ever, you need to address and disclose your true intentions and feelings with somebody. But a lot of times, the fear of the rejection or the outcome of the vulnerability is the scary part. And I feel as though when you're by yourself, you're in your thoughts. You have to actually address your issues.
Yeah, you ain't got no one else to talk to.
Yeah, you ain't got no one else to talk to. You ain't got nobody else to blame. You can't divert the finger pointing. You can't divert the blame. And a lot of times we don't want to have to deal with where we fucked up. Most breakups, whether it be platonic, romantic, business, are done by two sides. One might have more blame than the other, but there's a lot of times there's a response or there's a dynamic that was created there that we didn't realize. Is a guy might feel as though, I get her what she needs, she well taken care of, is good, but he ain't never just sat there and just tried to see, where her mental is, how, is she good, invest in her emotionally. But in the eyes of a lot of people, she has it all. Or it might be one guy that is so emotionally in tune with his woman, is so emotionally supportive, physically supportive. Their intimacy is on levels outside, but she might be like, damn, but I'm tired of struggling. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like what you don't have a lot of times is louder than what you have. And that's the scary part in dealing with somebody. Because the smile might still be there, but the unhappiness is inside. Right. And I feel as though that's the landmine, that's the minefield that we navigate sometimes in relationships, but that's also the excitement of the journey. Is the evolution and the growth of the feelings and the comfort. But that's a two-edged sword. In order for somebody to truly bond and become your soulmate, a lot of times that's gonna take vulnerability, because you have to be able to let your guard down and trust. And I just want to make sure that I, as a personally, am not the type that's, I don't address mine. So that's, my boy told me that, and I was like, I understood exactly why he did what he did, because he had a contentious relationship, bro. You know what I'm saying? It was tense at times, but the highs were real high. You know what I mean? Like great memories, great photo ops. You know what I'm saying? Great experiences. But then, like the day to day, he said that shit just stressed me out, fucked me up. So, you know what I'm saying?
It's that I call that like a poker relationship where you're sitting there all night losing money, but you get that one hand, you hit big,
Yeah.
and you keep on playing because of that shit.
Yeah, and exactly, because he'll be like, bro, we'll go somewhere, dog. We'll have this experience, this love, this vacation, boot up. We loving each other for a whole 4-5 days as we go, and then we get back to real life, something small. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, ain't putting more waters in the refrigerator. You know what I mean? Like, something small like that. And so what happens is those grow. And we realize as though somebody else might think that is everything it needs to be, especially if you're looking at it from an optic perspective. But it's what's under the hood of their relationship is what a lot of times makes it break, where you just get over it, man. And I don't want to get to that feeling without disclosing something along the way.
Right. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's kind of, you feel like it's a lie then.
Right. Right. Yeah, man. Like, shit, don't be afraid of love, though. That's what I'm trying to tell myself every day. And is don't be afraid to fall in love, man. And don't be afraid to receive love. I think a lot of black men especially, we don't know how to receive love, but we also don't know how to actually show love outside of physical, meaning, gifts, kisses, touches. A lot of times it's something as simple as, cooking one night. Cooking and she had a long week. Let me take up the slack for you. You know what I mean? That's where the true appreciation is shown a lot of times. And for a woman, I think, I said that a man appreciates that a lot of times, but I feel like most women of substance, they will appreciate the same things because fill in my blanks, and I just get irritated sometimes, though, when we make it more complicated than it has to be. Because a lot of times it's having actual dialogue of what you really are looking for. But you have to understand what you're looking for. Exactly. That's why you can't really go into a relationship and be successful until you know yourself. Like, I have to know my real language.
You have to love yourself, too.
Exactly.
Before you can love someone else.
Because that relationship can't be what reaffirms your belief in yourself or your self-esteem, like that esteem. That's why if somebody was to ask me what's the one thing that I look for in a woman at all times is confidence, because I feel like that's what's unwavering. I don't want to have to be with somebody who I determine how you view yourself, because that's a power I don't want to have. I don't want to wear that weight of knowing that how I move determines how you view yourself and your worth. Because that's a scary that's a scary place to be with somebody, dude. Like, people, like I talked about that like about 2 months ago on the show, where it's like someone's true win on you is when they're able to dictate your emotions. You remember, that's why I always say that, because I don't want to give somebody that power, but I also don't want someone to give me that power. I mean, shit, fuck it. Like, if we think about it, most men have an insecurity we don't even realize. Our egos, we can't handle what we dish out. We aren't built like that. We aren't built to withstand the emotional beatings that was sometimes in the emotional gymnastics we put others through. And what happens to us is we take things and we feel jaded, and everybody got to feel our wrath, after that. You know what I'm saying? Like, if a woman fuck you over, bro, every woman that has to, that comes in contact with you until that one breaks you down and makes you fix yourself, a lot of times. And all you doing is just passing out the hurt. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's where fuck niggas are born. Is guys who are unable to actually address their vulnerability and also address their insecurities, because a lot of times you do shit on ego to prove yourself. It's a proving ground. Every day is a proving ground for a lot of men, where we have to, prove our bravado, prove our standing within the eyes of people around us, within our globe, within our circle. But a lot of that is based off of a real currency of how you move socially with women, the caliber of women you date, what you're able to afford, what you have on the surface. So we move to make sure that all of that is standing strong, that it's in good standing, it looks good, is ideal. And we be so fucked up on the inside, because what happens is our relationships and dynamics with a lot of them we come in contact with is empty. And the reason I say it's empty is so surface. It's just something that we did because we looked at it, we approached it from an optics perspective. She looks good with me. Or I want that. It's a pursuit thing. It's a walk down. It's another notch. And what happens is you just do it one time after another time after another time after another time. And once a habit, it grows, it's harder to break that habit than to start it. So that's where it becomes a journey and a challenge for that woman that shows you and appreciates and actually deserves your love. That's where you end up not being able to close the gap, because you don't know how to receive the love, because you've never allowed yourself to practice receiving. And that's one thing that I've had to address, because somebody said in the comments on our podcast page that I seemed as though I was fucked up and I need to just leave the women I deal with alone and figure myself out. At first, I was like, I wanted to respond in a way that wasn't professional, because I was ready to react, like I spoke about earlier, emotionally, not take the time to understand where it was coming from. She's going off of, I just want to let everybody know, a lot of times when we speak on this show, on this platform, we're speaking in a more general perspective. It's not at that current place, these are moments that I speak about in general. But it was really real, though. It was like, that's why I wanted to talk about it this time, because it's like, if you show yourself with hurt behavior, like a hurt person can identify a hurt person's behavior, even if it's not obvious. Like after a post breakup, you just start doing everything that besides sitting still. Is you're just not trying to address anything that went wrong with the situation.
Fill all your time up.
Yeah, it's like I can see it. You like, I'm newly single. You know how people put posts when they post when they break up now, even if it's for a couple weeks. You're going to know that person is no longer in a relationship. And just watch that movement post breakup. It's real fast a lot of times. It's no somberness, because we have to feel, we feel like we have to show everybody that I'm all right. We're so worried about what others feel, as though what we, of how we are viewed and how we are really handling the situation. And when we really think people are paying attention to it a lot of times. So we just fuck our actual grieving process, or our actual, process of addressing where I might have went wrong. We just jump head first back into the streets. I'm back. And all you do is come in contact with a bunch of goddamn noise, and you haven't addressed none of the shit that went wrong in your last experience. I found myself, I used to do that a lot, where if me and another person situation, or if something went left, or if it didn't work out, I had to prove that I was on to the next. It's a cycle, though. It's a cycle, and then you look up 2 years, 3 years, you're 30, you're 31, 32. Like,
yeah, you're in a pattern then.
It's a pattern. It's harder to break that pattern for me, and it's hard for me to actually be genuine and approach a relationship full disclosure. And so that's why I had to call myself out on it, and know like I'm twinkle toes in relationships. I'm hard to line up a lot of times, and I think that's because I'm still working on learning how to receive love. I feel like I'm a great lover and I'm someone who's able to show love, able to show appreciation. I feel as though I'm emotionally, aware, and I'm someone that you can approach and talk to. But when it comes to receiving it, that's what makes me uncomfortable. And so that's why I just wanted to make sure that I put that on wax. I talk so much other shit, but
do you see now that when you were gonna react to the comment on emotion, it's because it felt like an attack, right?
Right.
When really that was really someone trying to help your ass out.
Exactly.
And that's hard to see though initially. So you just got to give things some time sometimes.
Let it bubble, man.
Right.
Basically, because a lot of times we pay attention to we might pay attention to the source of the comment, or we might pay attention to, what it says, but we don't look at how accurate it is sometimes. That person doesn't know me from a can of paint, but this is what I gave off on the episode. And she was able to see through that shit. And I just want to salute her on calling my ass out on that. But yeah, man, so shit happens. It's been weird. This has been a weird experience for me sitting here, one deep at this table. And I feel like I'm talking so much, but I just had so much on my goddamn, my heart was heavy. My head was full coming into the show, and it was dope. And when I realized that I had to come in here and speak, by myself, I'm like, why not just start actually just getting my thoughts out on wax of what I'm dealing with, of the emotional roller coaster this week and this last few months and this year as a whole has been. But also what I've learned, the positive things that have happened about myself. I'm way more responsible, and then I realize I'm way more how can I put this? I used to always think I was a laid back guy. I just let shit kind of happen to me. But I've realized I have a lot more of the proactive, of a proactive DNA in myself than I realized. That always things kind of came easy to me as far as, just stuff just always came easy to me. Finding jobs, making career changes. But when it came to finding your lane outside of what you do 9 to 5, day to day, that's always where I struggled. Because I'm scatterbrained at moments, or I might procrastinate on things. But I felt as though this year has actually showed me that you are way more, creative, and you're way more assertive and proactive than you gave yourself credit for, than I gave myself credit for. That's what keeps me coming back to this podcast every week, and all of us, all four of us. Is the slow bubble, the words of affirmation, the support of I'm rocking with y'all. Because I remember that you remember the first episode.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you had listened to it at all lately. Because I would think if you listen to the first episode and one now, there's a massive difference in, just quality of the whole thing in general, but the way people talk, what we talk about, it is completely different.
Bro, we was just shooting the shit. Honestly, and we find ourselves doing that a lot of times, and sometimes our listeners will appreciate it, but I feel as though we make more headway when we are more, more balanced and actually, more, we lie. We're loud, we're brash, we're in your face, also, we like to talk over each other because we talk shit. But then I realized as though, are we really being heard? And I feel as though that's why we've gotten a lot of the responses we've gotten the last few months, is because we've allowed ourselves to be heard more and not just try to talk, because we got a lot. I feel as though our behind the scenes conversations are way more dope sometimes than was on wax. You've been in here, and I think that's because it's a comfort zone. You're not overthinking it.
Right.
And that's one of the one things that I would just try to, practice with, having a platform and just not overthink it, man. Just let it come off the cuff, because authenticity is what sells.
Right. No, and that's why getting a little crazy at times should be part of it. Like, sometimes people want to put some shit on where people are just throwing down, getting fucking loud as fuck.
Right.
Because that's the energy you want,
But you can hide behind that.
Right.
It's a character almost, you know what I'm saying? So that's why I feel as though a lot of people with platforms come off with that energy, because it's the easiest energy just to kind of keep yourself from actually being open. A comedian, you never really know a lot of times a comedian's true horrors, because he dresses it up as entertainment. The jokes might actually hit home harder than you realize. So that's how I feel as though, you might laugh off some shit, but it really, it irritates you. But sometimes you gotta laugh to keep from crying. So that's why I say, just being honest with the dialogue is key in having a platform. I mean, so many times people pay so much attention to branding and marketing, and we water down the true authenticity of a brand and the platform, because a lot of the correspondence that we get is on shit that we never thought, that we didn't plan, or that we didn't really put on paper. It was just a true emotional comment. So that's what we just gonna keep bringing y'all, man. This was episode 93, and I just felt as though as we walk down on episode 100, man, I'm so proud of us as a whole, just for knocking down these episodes one at a time. Because, man, starting over 2 years ago, I was where I ain't gonna lie, I got in the podcast and thinking like, man, I'm trying to get this shit big, bro. And I didn't look at the actual experience of just growing it. And I see why so many people are in entrepreneurs, and how an entrepreneur gets up every day. And I see how an artist gets up every day, because that drive of just reaching another person, or reaching another demographic of people, or being able to just have somebody actually appreciate your art, or whatever you're putting your efforts, or whatever you're putting your energy into. I think that's something that keeps you going. That's the gas in your tank, man. That's the fuel. So again, I always want to say, make sure I put out my words of appreciation to all the people that's been rocking with us the last 2.5 years. We're going to keep bringing y'all consistent in real conversation, man. And this your boy Unspokn the Source, man. And shout out to my boy D-Boy, my boy Knowledge, and of course Flim, man. And Spider, thank you for being my co-pilot today.
Man. My pleasure. It was a good show.
Man, great commentary, bro. So we just gonna we're gonna take this out with some luxurious vibes, my man Buster. My boy Rose, the OG, speak again, man. This is Unspoken Conversation. We out of here.
Diplomats, Arabic, how I'm making my moves. Road to riches, fucking bitches in my favorite shoes.